Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the Leader of the Opposition that there is a thing called the private sector. The private sector makes decisions about investment. The private sector, with the best deal in the world, will invest in this country, and we will build Canada strong. That our relationship with the United States would never again be what it was. Secondly, thing that is true is we have the best deal with the Americans. And the third thing that's true is we will get an even better deal because we are.
The chamber trembled before a word was spoken. Moments after returning from his high-stakes meeting with the U.S. President, Mark Carney rose to obliterate the noise. What followed was demolition. With the precision and the authority of a statesman, Carney destroyed Pierre Poilievre on the floor of Parliament, turning fury into silence. By the time he finished, the House of Commons was on its feet, and Poilievre was left in political rubble.
Remember that promise, Mr. Speaker, dancing around with his elbows in the air? We haven't seen those elbows since the election, after which $54 billion of investment gone to the United States, 86,000 jobs gone, American tariffs on Canada doubled. And as to the best deal in the world, why is it then, if we have the best deal, that Canada has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7, and 86,000 people are without a job?
Across the aisle, Pierre Poilievre fired back. He threw out numbers: $54 billion in lost investment, 86,000 jobs gone, doubled U.S. tariffs. He accused Carney of weakness, of bowing to Washington, of handing Trump a $1 trillion gift. The words were sharp, but they bounced off. Carney waited, then, with surgical calm, delivered the line that broke the room.
Okay. All right. Mr. Speaker, there are three things that are true. First is, I realized long before the Leader of the Opposition, long before the last election, you remember the last election? Long before the last election, that our relationship with the United States would never again be what it was. Secondly, thing that is true is we have the best deal with the Americans. And the third thing that's true is we will get an even better deal because we are.
The chamber erupted. Laughter, applause. Even a few conservatives couldn't help themselves. The speaker's gavel pounded in vain. Carney didn't smirk. He didn't gloat. He simply continued, tone flat, eyes forward. The private sector decides where to invest, he said, and under the best deal in the world, it's investing right here in Canada.
Canadians do remember the last election where that Prime Minister promised to put elbows up. It was not a promise, it was the promise that he ran on. Now those elbows have come down, the American tariffs have doubled, we have by far the weakest economy in the G7, 86,000 people have lost their jobs, and the Prime Minister went pathetically to the White House to offer a $1 trillion gift, bowing before the President in weakness. $1 trillion, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of the last election, where in his platform did he promise to give $1 trillion of our investment dollars to the Americans?
He never raised his voice, but the authority in his words drowned out everything else. Poilievre tried to recover, repeating the same talking points, but the energy was gone. The harder he pushed, the smaller he looked. Carney's composure made Poilievre's anger seem like noise. Then came the knockout.
Mr. Speaker, we have the best deal in the world with the Americans. First point. Second point, the President of the United States and myself had a meeting of minds yesterday with respect to the future of the steel sector, the aluminum sector, the energy sector in cooperation, which is why our teams are negotiating the terms of those deals. And we are working, as the President himself said in the Oval Office, on the modalities of an auto agreement.
Mark Carney didn't raise his voice. He didn't wave papers or throw punches. He didn't have to. What he did instead was far more devastating. He dismantled Pierre Poilievre with surgical precision, one line at a time. When he rose with that calm authority and said, "Mr. Speaker, yesterday I met with the President of the United States. I gave such a lesson to the President yesterday," the House of Commons froze. Not out of respect, out of shock. It was the kind of silence that follows a clean knockout. And in that moment, Carney wasn't just winning an argument. He was rewriting what dominance in politics looked like. The chamber erupted seconds later. Applause, laughter, disbelief. It was chaos wrapped in awe. Reporters in the press gallery scrambled for their phones. The quote was already destined for front pages. Poilievre, still clutching his notes, tried to recover, but his words didn't land anymore. The room had moved on. Carney sat down to a standing ovation that built like thunder rolling through the chamber, a wave of approval not seen since the Mulroney years.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is doing for the auto sector is an unprecedented investment in the Canadian auto sector. We look the Canadian auto workers in the eye.
And here's the brutal truth. Poilievre came to perform, but Carney came to lead. One relied on outrage, the other on facts. One shouted, the other taught. That's why it hurt, because Carney didn't just beat him in a debate. He exposed him. The House didn't see an opposition leader fighting for Canadians. They saw a politician drowning in his own rhetoric. Carney stood like a man who already knew the ending. When he looked across the aisle and delivered that line, "Mr. Speaker, there is a thing called the private sector." It was pure precision. The timing, the tone, the calm delivery. It was the kind of jab that doesn't bruise, it brands. Laughter rolled through the room. Even the opposition benches cracked. You could see it on their faces. The reluctant smirks, the silent acknowledgement that they'd just witnessed something rare. Control under pressure.
We have $5 billion in the Strategic Response Fund. We have $10 billion for liquidity management. We have worker retraining. We are striking deals with countries around the world. We have the best deal already with the Americans, and it will be even better.
This wasn't arrogance. This was mastery. Carney didn't need to dominate the airwaves or shout down his critics. He simply owned the moment. When Poilievre tried to fire back with his usual fury, 54 billion lost, 86,000 jobs gone, doubled U.S. tariffs, Carney countered with composure and data that couldn't be twisted. Real numbers, real programs, $5 billion in strategic response funds, $10 billion in liquidity management, agreements on critical minerals that even Washington envied. How do you argue with facts when the man across from you helped write the playbook?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he just confirmed he's selling out our auto workers. And let me tell him what it means when investment leaves this country, because he was forced a record amount out in his 7 months in power. The 700 workers at the GM plant who lost their jobs in Oshawa, they can tell him about investment that is left. They're sitting around the dinner table wondering how they're going to pay their bills while GM announces $4 billion of new investment south of the border. So while the Prime Minister promises yet another $1 trillion gift to President Trump, why doesn't he look them at those workers in the eye and explain to them why he betrayed them?
By that point, the room's energy shifted completely. Poilievre's voice grew sharper, but Carney's silence grew louder. Each time Carney spoke, his tone carried weight. When he said, "Real leadership isn't about rage, it's about results," it didn't sound like a clapback. It sounded like a verdict, and the chamber agreed. Even MPs who rarely nodded outside their party lines sat still, eyes forward. What did Poilievre have left after that? More talking points? More fury? More volume? None of it worked. Because what do you do when the man across from you dismantles your entire argument with a single sentence and a half smile?
We have a strategy with the United States. That means that our auto sector is paying less than 10% tariff.
By the time Carney finished, you could feel the air change. The speaker's gavel barely managed to contain the applause. Reporters were already typing headlines. Carney schools Poilievre on economics. Standing ovation for the Prime Minister. Calm crushes chaos. It wasn't hyperbole, it was history. The clip went viral within hours, racking up millions of views across Canada. Polling the next day showed a bump. Canadians were responding not to partisanship, but to poise. He didn't just defend policy, he redefined leadership. In a world addicted to chaos, Carney proved that calm still commands respect. He reminded Canadians that data isn't dull, it's power. He turned anger into background noise. And that's the thing about composure. It makes noise look desperate.
When Japan, when Europe, when the UK, when the rest of the world is paying 15, which is bigger than 10, or higher. And we are not done yet, because we refuse to sign a deal that isn't better in the interests of Canadians. And that's why
So when Carney stood, papers in hand, and delivered that final cool line, there is a thing called the private sector. It wasn't just a mic drop, it was a statement about how governance should be done. Facts over fury, clarity over noise. Carney didn't need to celebrate. He didn't even need to speak again. He simply gathered his papers, nodded to the speaker, and walked out of the chamber the same way he entered, calm, measured, unbothered. Because when you win that completely, you don't announce it. You let the country do it for you. And that's what happened. Within hours, social media was flooded with clips, memes, and sound bites. Mr. Speaker, there is a thing called the private sector became a rallying cry. It wasn't just a moment. It was a message that calm can be stronger than chaos, that facts can still cut through fury, that leadership isn't about shouting louder, it's about standing taller when everyone else loses control. On that day, Carney didn't just destroy Poilievre, he reminded Canada what real leadership looks like. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to get more updates.